Right, I think we're live. Let's just go ahead and check. How's it going? I think maybe two people have joined us. Just taking some time off on a Friday to do a little bit of kind of end of the week work. If you're out there, what's on your mind? So this week has been pretty eventful. Um, I just put the finishing touches on an article that's coming out maybe maybe this weekend. I don't know exactly, but it's coming out on the website TechCrunch. That's pretty exciting because they have a massive, at least a massive follower base on Twitter. I think they have literally 10 million subscribers or followers. So I'll be interested in hearing what's going on, what comes from that. But yeah, how's it going? Yearsy 23BX. I'm sort of doing a joint TikTok, YouTube live because it's fun to get questions um, from all directions. So, for those of you on YouTube, I have a TikTok channel, First Gen Professor, and for those joining on TikTok, I'm over on YouTube at youtube.com/Tom Mulaney. Mark, hi, Dr. Mulaney. Hey, Mark. Oh, please call me Tom. I try to, but I appreciate you starting out that way. Um, yeah, it's funny. You know, I always err on the side of formality. I think it's a good way to start. Um, but in my normal conduct, I only use doctor, professor. I guess if I have some sort of role in a student's life, like I'm an advisor or they're in my class, if they're just in a different department, then I'm just Tom. Can I ask a question about PhD studying? Yes, please do. Please do. So over here on YouTube, we have a question coming in any moment now from Mark about uh, PhD programs and studying in PhDs. So if anyone over here, I don't know if there are any undergrads or grad students over here on TikTok, but I'll let you know what that question is when it comes in. But yeah, I have a piece coming out this weekend or sometime around, and TechCrunch is the name of the magazine, journal, and my understanding is that the readers of TechCrunch are very technically minded. Um, so today I was doing some pretty serious fact checking of my article just to make sure I didn't make any silly blunders, because those are the kinds of things that technical readers seize upon. Josh, hello Josh. Josh Wenrick. Hey, over on TikTok. Nice to see you. So Mark is keeping me in suspense over here on YouTube. He's got a question for me about PhD studying, but I think maybe you're still composing it. Over on TikTok, we have a question from Christian Tippett. What do I think of MFAs, which I take to mean Masters of Fine Arts? Tell me if I'm wrong about that. I adore them. If that's what they are, I absolutely adore them. I think they're wonderful, and I actually had the opportunity not to do an MFA, but to have almost like a taste test of the world of MFAs. I got this grant from the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation called the Mellon New Directions Fellowship. It's a program, and what they do is they give kind of mid-career people like myself. So you have to be out of your PhD program for some time. They give you a chance to go in a new direction. So you become a student again. If you get this grant, you get funding to pay tuition to study something. And for my part, I did graphic design, type design, because of an enduring interest, but also because a lot of my research is moving into new directions. So I got to kind of recreate a 1-year MFA. So I love it. Cool. Questions are coming in over here on TikTok. So, Mark, okay. My program doesn't offer me a lot of chances to publish papers. My cohorts don't have first author paper when they graduate. So I imagine the question is broadly about publishing in grad school. Pardon me. Well, let's sort of let's explode that. Oh, there's a bit more. So I'm really concerned about it because I want to have a faculty position in the future. Academia requires publication. Well, I mean, let's be blunt and obvious. There's no doubt that having a first authored, peer-reviewed article in a top-tier or high-tier journal is a major feather in the cap of any PhD student. Like, there's no doubt. It's just a good thing to be able to say, and it's a wonderful experience, or it can be. And probably more now than ever before, grad students are trying to publish in during their PhD programs. Some attempt this too early, like in their first or second or third years. I personally think that's a bit too early. I can explain why if you're interested. But, fourth year, fifth year, sixth year is very common to hear people attempting this. Now, technically speaking, that is not the thing that makes or breaks the job search process or the postdoc application process. That is probably I can't speak for all admissions committees or hiring committees, but in the pecking order of concern, whether or not a person has published an article specifically, certainly it's in the top 10. Sometimes it breaks into the top 5, but it's certainly not in the top, it's not top 1, 2, or 3, at least in my experience. And I've been on a number of admissions and hiring committees. So where it really comes down to is if you have a variety of, what always happens in admissions or in hiring is that at the end you get to this place where you have a whole a pool of extremely interesting, talented candidates, and then you get to choose like one person or a small fraction. And that's probably the place where publication can make a difference, like in that final stages of the process. But in the first cut, second cut, like going from the applicant pool to the long short list to the short list to the final candidates, in my experience, whether or not a grad student has published is not very high in the set of questions. Now, this could be different. I don't know where you're writing from. I don't know what your discipline is. So you definitely want to get discipline-specific advice from people you trust. But something you mentioned in your comment, you said, my program doesn't offer me a lot of chances to publish papers. I don't quite understand what offer me in that sentence means. Do you mean they actually say to you, like, you're not allowed to try to get published? Do they not give you opportunities to learn kind of professional development workshops to figure out how you even go about publishing? Because, and I'm sure you know this, the world of publishing is completely separate. You can, I published my first article. I did publish a piece in grad school, and I don't even think my advisor knew I was doing this. I probably should have run it by her, but I did not. So I kind of was operating independently. And there was nothing in particular in my program that either offered the chance to do this or not. Now, maybe you mean your program doesn't require you to do, say, what we call, what at Columbia was called, and at Stanford is called, like, research seminars. These are classes that are dedicated to producing article length original research. And that's true. If your program doesn't have any courses that have you as a student just focus and do that for a grade, then it's very hard to find time in your non-existent extra time to doing that. So depending on which of those you mean when you say my program doesn't offer me a lot of chances to publish papers, then the issue might, the advice would be different. So if there's any additional information you can provide, maybe I can fine tune that. But cool. Let's see over here on. Cool, over here on TikTok. So if anyone has just joined, I'm doing this sort of dual live. I'm over here on TikTok on my channel, First Gen Professor. And for anyone who just joined, I have my YouTube channel, First Gen Professor, which is just youtube.com/Tom Mullaney, TOMMULLANEY. So over here we've got a question. How much of my research plan should I have thought out before reaching out to potential PhD advisors? If I could ask a quick follow-up question, what field or discipline are you in? So if you can tell me that, I'll bump you up in the queue once you answer. You won't lose your spot, but a lot depends on that. Poli-sci. Okay, cool. So the question is if you're a poli-sci PhD, applying to poli-sci PhD program, how much of your research plan do you have to have, like, mapped out? Less than you think, I would say. What you need is, at the very least, to have done some, have firsthand experience in ideally undertaking research, like primary research in your field, so that you understand, what you're getting yourself into, but probably more importantly, that you learn who you are as a scholar, what you actually care about. Because I think that there's a big difference between doing a paper for a class just because you have an assignment and you've got to come up with something, versus working on something like a dissertation, which is a deeply personal thing. No one assigns a dissertation topic to you, at least in this day and age. In most places, that doesn't happen anymore. I'm thinking of the North American Academy, but there's still places where advisors kind of divvy out thesis topics to their mentees. That's uncommon, more and more uncommon. So it has to be something that really bothers you intellectually, existentially, that you want to commit, no joke, 10 plus years of your life to. And so you can't figure that out unless you get in the pool and swim or get on the field and play. And so the more experience you have in that, the better position you'll be to say, when you reach out to an advisor, generally speaking, I am concerned with this areas or problems, and that's the reason I want to work with you. You don't want to, I don't know poli-sci all that well, but if I know comparative politics is one, electoral politics is a subfield, and there are lots of different subfields. You don't want to reach out and get far into a conversation with an advisor who, after you learn who you are intellectually more, is not a good fit. So that's the kind of legwork you want to have work on prior to considering what graduate program and advisor. You don't really have to have an exact blueprint or roadmap for your entire research plan. Even if you did that, chances are your experience when you actually enter a PhD program is going to blow that plan up, because you're going to deepen and become a smarter, wiser, better researcher. And as you do, you're going to look on this earlier plan you had and say, I'm actually deepening and moving in a slightly different direction. But if planning in advance helps you get to that place where you learn who you are as a scholar, then by all means do it. Just know that it's kind of fictional. What you're doing is a little bit fictional. It isn't what you think it's about, even if it's good. Cool. All right. Hey, a bunch of people on the YouTube chat. Awesome. So if you've just joined, I'm doing this dual YouTube TikTok deal. I really like, because I never know who's going to show up where. But we have a few questions over here on YouTube, and I'll make sure to repeat them so those of you on TikTok know what's being asked, and vice versa. So, okay. Okay, so Mark just followed up. I don't think my program has any courses like the ones that I have identified. Okay, so if your program doesn't have required research seminar style courses, that is a course where PhD students, and sometimes by invitation, master's students, are using the 10 or 15 weeks of that quarter or semester just to work on a research project, then yes, I would say that makes it structurally extremely hard to produce peer review ready research and writing. Because if you're just taking classes and you've got a full load and maybe you're teaching as well, there's no time. That's why professors do so much of their research in the summer, because that's when they have the time of uninterrupted thought. So, if you message me or whatever, I could try to help you brainstorm maybe some possible avenues. Maybe there are some directed readings you could try to set up with professors to recreate the experience of a research seminar. And maybe some of your colleagues might be interested in being in that as well. And maybe 3 of you could pitch a directed reading, basically a research seminar, to a professor in your department and recreate the experience of a research seminar. That's one possibility. So just, let's see, PH Park, I have one question. How critical do you think it is to have a PhD from a top American university to get a position in American university? Or do you think a European PhD, non-British, non-Canada, will have a chance? This is a great question. And it's also, it's a great question because you clearly know what you're talking about just in asking this question. In my view, you really can understand how well someone knows something by the questions they ask, not that they know it all about something. But anyway, I'm going to stop praising you and try to help you. The blunt truth is that some countries in Europe, if we just limit it to Europe, are far more recognizable to the American Academy than others when it comes to PhD programs. And often that has nothing to do with the actual stature of the programs in question. So let me just give some examples. And this is field specific. This is, this depends on what you're studying. But in the realm of history, I'll just use that as an example. I would say that the American Academy readily recognizes and has no further explanation is needed when talking about UK institutions, when talking about certain French institutions, when talking about certain German institutions, in the field of Chinese history, which is what I work on, certain like Leiden University needs no further explanation. But if you were to go to one of the many amazing institutions in Italy, Spain, Portugal, at that point, and if we were talking about Spanish history or Italian history, this would be a different story. But the the sort of something about people have heard of the Sorbonne, people have heard of Aix-en-Provence, people have heard of Berlin University, but for some reason fewer people know of Bologna or Padova. That's a good example. And so it's not even. It's not even across the how to put it. It's not even across the continent, across the UK, and that's bad. I mean, I don't support that, but it's there, and so you probably do need to keep in mind that question about if, and I would say the same thing is true in many fields with institutions in. I think Japan is more recognizable to the American Academy than China. Todai, Tokyo University, is more recognizable than, I don't know, Beijing 师范大学, Beijing Normal University, even though these programs are Renmin University, People's University. So it's good to, it's good to think ahead and to plan in a way that keeps your options open, even as I wish that the truth were different, I would say. Cool, I'll jump back here. Let's see. Probably Psy. Okay, Henry Veritas over here on TikTok. Is there a published article / book number that institutions require to give you tenure? Short answer is basically no. They're typically speaking, I only know the language of tenure requirements in a small handful of universities. I don't know them all because every one of them concocts different kinds of languages for it. They're very vague. Tenure language, like requirements, is purposefully vague because it gives leeway to the institution to make decisions. And so, but in common practice, the answer is yes. So, for example, it's not a question of articles in my life, it's books. Like at Stanford, your first book has to be out, reviewed, and reviewed well in order to set you up to have a chance at tenure at the institution. And then you need to show significant, I think this is the language, significant progress towards your second book. This is history. So obviously there are fields that don't publish books, they publish articles. The language in those fields is going to be different. Economics, per se, let's say. But there is no institution I can think of that says if you hit, like as soon as you publish a book, you've got tenure, because the book could suck. or it could be absolutely ripped apart by reviews. Um, or, and this is I think, the shadier side of our profession, it someone could simply decide at higher levels not to grant tenure. The very famous case in Stanford's history, in Chinese history in my world, is the story of oh my gosh, the part of my brain with names has always been Gail Hirschhatter, towering, amazing figure in 20th century Chinese history, gender, women's history, revolutionary history, labor. Um, I think maybe there was an offer from, this is a long time ago, an offer from the history department at Stanford, and it was an offer with tenure. And when someone is offered a job at a tenured level, then the institution offering the tenured job has to do a tenure review, even if the person already has tenure where they are. And as the story goes, and I've heard this through multiple avenues, the department voted yes, the deans voted yes, and then the provost overruled it and said no. Do you know who that provost was? Condoleezza Rice. So the story is that Condoleezza Rice, yes, of the Bush administration, who was once provost of Stanford and is now head of Hoover, overruled the tenure vote for this towering historian of China, and that search failed. So it's not, the institutions, when it comes to tenure, do not like to tie their hands by using language that is too clear. And that is one of the reasons why tenure review is such an anxiety producing thing. Not only are so much at stake, but it's not exactly clear. So, cool. Let's see. All right. All right. Andy Bold. Hi, Professor. Thanks for your work. Really appreciate it. My pleasure. Question: could you say something about PhD admissions? In particular, do you have any advice for statement of purpose and writing sample for history? Well, let's start with the writing sample. Writing sample, if you know, you get to the application phase and you've got all of this writing that you did in college, all of it typically in coursework, unless you did an honors thesis, which is really helpful, or if you did some kind of longer form research, which is really helpful. And the question is like, what do I choose? Do I need to choose something like exactly related to what I'm proposing my PhD will be about, or whatever? And I would say my view is that let's imagine a hypothetical where you have two finalists. You wrote two things and you're deciding which one do I send. One of them is kind of about what you are saying you want to study as a PhD student. But it's kind of synthetic, by which I mean it's based on a summary and a synthesis of your readings of other books. So it's like almost like a literature review. The other one is not related directly to what you say you want to study. It's still history in this case because you are applying to history. But it has the bibliography, the footnotes are full of the primary sources that you use to write it. And ideally, let's say that you're applying to do German history or Ottoman history or Middle Eastern history. It's full of sources in Ottoman Turkish or in Arabic or in German or in whatever your research language is. If it's American history and you use English language sources, that's fine too. But I'm saying that, where you're really showing off that you can do this, by this I mean research and writing, in my view, there's no question. It's the second one that you want to choose and then start to refine and edit as your writing sample. It's better to show in your writing sample that you can do this kind of work. You know what you're getting into. Because the admissions committee, they won't care that it's not about your proposed dissertation. They will look at it and say, this person knows how to do, they have a lot to learn, blah, 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 but it's very encouraging. So that's one thing to think of with writing samples. Statement of purpose is where, of course, you are, you're painting a picture of yourself, ideally, as a person who knows the literature in the subfield that you are proposing to work in. So there is a kind of almost literature review element to the statement of purpose, where you are name dropping selectively, indicating that you understand the present day directions and arguments and debates. You don't have to do a whole review, but you indicate that you know this. It's not like, oh, I read the book Sapiens and now I really want to do a PhD in history. That's not what you, so if you, for whatever reason, are really interested in early modern trade networks in the Indian Ocean region, then you want to make sure that you're citing Sugata Bose or whoever it might be, because again, that shows a degree of intellectual engagement and maturity, and it shows that you're ready to hit the ground running, and also that you're not going to just get to the program if you get in and then quit or lose steam or find out this is not what you wanted. So that's part of the statement of purpose. The other thing I would say about statement of purpose, which is very different than when you apply to undergrad, is that in undergrad, at least in my experience, you're supposed to present yourself as a well-rounded individual and kind of, trumpet all of the different qualities you have and stuff. In statement of purpose for the dissertation, you are trying to present yourself as mature and, and yes, well-rounded, but focused. Like, you really know this area, you've been thinking about this area, you've been working in this area, and you know that this is what you want to do. Now, here's the key. It's a lie. You are interested in a lot of things. You do have a lot of hobbies. You do, under different circumstances, you could do something different, but you don't want to talk like that in a statement of purpose on a PhD application. You don't want to be a kind of jack of all trades in a thing like that. You want to err on the side of seeming focused, well-read, knowledgeable, but focused. And then lastly, remember, when you apply to a PhD program, most of the time, in many different disciplines, not all, but many different disciplines, you're really applying to an advisor or a group of mentors more than a department or a university. And so you need to get them on your side, excited about you. They are the ones that then champion and fight for you to get admission. It's not just like some nameless committee. Your ostensible advisor needs to be really excited about the idea of working with you. So learn about them. Yeah. So over here on TikTok, this is really interesting, as is all your stuff on here. Thank you. I appreciate that. Cool. Someone posted something in the Q&A. Great. Thank you for doing that. How do you decide what you want to research at time of application? So this is similar to Andy Bull's question over on YouTube. If anyone just joined, I'm doing a joint TikTok, YouTube. The key is you have to decide something. So it can feel really high pressure, like, oh my gosh, I have to figure out exactly who I am as a human being now. And I'm 20-something years old, or I'm 30-something years old, and I don't know who I am. Well, yes, it is stressful, and you do need to write your application in this tone as if you have self-confidence that you have figured out who you are and what you want to do. But just know that if and when you get in the door of a PhD program, and I made a video about this on both YouTube and TikTok, no one remembers your application. No one, not even your advisor. You can change. You can't get in as a French historian and try and then just switch to, I don't know, a German political scientist. You can't switch departments easily. Um, and you probably shouldn't switch advisors unless you really need to. You should be at least confident about that. But what you end up doing is, for all intents and purposes, near infinite, limited only by your language abilities and so forth. But there is incredible leeway once you get in the door of most PhD programs. So you're deciding, but you're only deciding for the purposes of the application and of demonstrating that, yes, I know what I'm getting into. I know how to do this thing called research and writing, and I understand how to master a literature or develop knowledge of a literature. And here's proof of that. So hope that helps. Cool. So there are a few more questions from Mark and Andy, and I will come back to those just to make sure I. Oh, Wan Shanghao. Hello. Wow, I love the surname Ouyang. In China, most family names are single characters like Wang or Chen, but then there are a few that are two characters, and Ouyang is one of them. And I just love Ouyang, Ouyang Xiu. Anyway, cool. Okay, let's see. Jean-Baptiste, our MPhils, this is over on YouTube. Are MPhils at British universities worth getting if you want to eventually apply for a PhD program? I straight up just don't know the answer to that question. I think because my understanding of MPhils is limited to North American academies. An MPhil in a North American academic setting is the coursework phase of a PhD program. So it's kind of like a master's program, but a master's degree is terminal. Like it comes to an end after 1 or 2 years, and you either do or do not do a thesis, but when you're done, if you fulfill all the requirements, you have an MA. An MPhil, like I have an MPhil and an MA, but my MPhil is what I completed at Columbia University en route to a PhD. And so basically it's the coursework phase of it. And then, so I've never heard of an MPhil as a standalone thing. So if you could give maybe a bit more info, that would be great. One Little Bull asks, good afternoon, Professor. Thanks. How to deal with imposter syndrome fear when looking for interviewing a faculty job? Very hard. Very, very, very hard. When I got the call that Stanford was interested in interviewing me first round, I was very confused and very scared. And I used to live in Brooklyn in New York when I was at Columbia, and I went to the cafe that I always went to, and I talked to the friend who worked there, and she's very nice. She was this older woman who had young kids, and we would just chat about stuff. And I was 26 at the time, I think. I was either 26 or 27. No, 26. And she said, try to imagine. And as soon as she said, try to imagine, my brain, I don't know why, it spins very fast, and perhaps also because of anxiety, I can very rapidly sort of pre-populate what I think a person is going to say. And some of the times it's right, some of the time it's wrong. But in any event, this time it was wrong. I pre-populated like, she's going to say the cliche of like, try to imagine everyone in the audience naked or something. And instead, she said something that I'd never heard before and totally blew my mind. She said, try to imagine what you would do if you weren't afraid. And it was like, That is so awesome. So let's take that apart for a second. Try to imagine what you would do if you were not afraid. It is not the same thing as saying, don't be afraid. It's like, you are afraid. You are. But it's introducing this idea of performance. And so you are afraid. You are a person who is afraid, but you're on a stage, and your role is a person who is. Oops, your role is a person who is. Oh, lost connection. Sorry about that. Your role is a person who is not afraid. And suddenly it was like, okay, I know, I can imagine in my mind a person who is not afraid. I can think of moments in my life when I was not afraid. And I can imagine performing that. And that to me is the essence of navigating imposter syndrome and anxiety. I'm an incredibly introverted, socially awkward person. I do not like parties. I do not like groups larger than 5 or 4 or 3. And yet I stand in front of audiences and classes of 100 or more, audiences of 500. And the way that it works is, in essence, what my friend had said, is that I'm just acting as if I am not afraid. I'm afraid right now, but I am acting as if I'm not. And do the two ever meet? Do the two ever meet where you don't have to act anymore? I'll tell you if I find out the answer to that, but I would say all indication is that the answer is no. There is a distance between the one and the other. I mean, it's not like I'm always afraid, but you realize that you don't actually need it to go away. It's just you welcome it to the dinner table and you say, hi, imposter syndrome me, have some food. Like, you don't judge it as harshly anymore. You're like, get out of here, dirty imposter syndrome me. I don't like you. It's like, no, okay, come to the table. Come to the table, pull up a chair. You're me, I'm you. What are we going to do about this? And just know as well that imposter syndrome is doing good things for you. It's keeping you fresh. It's keeping you humble. So, it can go out of control and screw things up. But it itself is not bad. I actually, more and more, I don't think we need to get over imposter syndrome. I think we need to learn how to have a relationship that's healthy with our imposter syndrome. That's the key. It's like saying to a person that I deal with anxiety, other people deal with depression or whatever other people deal with. For me, it's not about getting rid of my anxious self. That is here. I don't know where it comes from, but it's here. It's my relationship with it, with myself, that is up to me to decide. Ooh, went to a deep place there. All right, so just as a little heads up, I'll probably hang out for maybe about 3 more minutes. I hope everyone here is already subscribed to the channel, because I'm going to be making some videos about this stuff. But let me take some more questions. Loki Man, hey, nice to see you again. This is a great question actually for let me think back here. I think it was, yeah, Mark, if you're still on, I don't know if you're still there, but there's a question over on TikTok that I think is relevant to what you're saying from Loki Man 88. Can a strong grants record in the humanities, meaning like you've landed a number of grants or strong grants or whatever, in the humanities, offset not being published yet when it comes to hiring committees? The answer is absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. Hiring committees place emphasis on you name it. I don't know what your field is, but wow, this person won a Fulbright, this person won an NEH, this person won best dissertation. Well, that's not a fellowship, but this person landed an ACLS, this person landed a whatever, an NSF, blah, blah, blah. Definitely. Definitely. I think that because academic scholars understand how much work goes into landing a fellowship. Landing a fellowship is, yeah, it's the same amount of work as writing an article in terms of total expenditure of energy and difficulty of getting it. So, yes, the answer, in my view, is unequivocally yes. I don't know what the exact exchange rate would be between an article and a great fellowship, but an article and a big fellowship, or it might be a 1-to-1. It might be a 1-to-1 exchange rate. Cool. And then Franklin G over here on TikTok says, what classes do you teach? Are they for undergrads or grad students? So I teach the full gamut. I teach undergrad classes. I teach and advise undergrads, master's students, PhD students, and when the universe aligns in a particular way, I have mentored postdocs. So full gamut. I teach a variety of classes. So history of modern China, history of information technology. I did a course on race and ethnicity in Asia. Kind of a deep dive into the history, biography of Mao Zedong. I co-teach the Intro to Science, Technology, and Society class, which is the gateway course for the largest major in the humanities and social sciences at Stanford, which is STS, Science, Technology, and Society, and then a variety of others. Yeah. Cool. So let's see. All right. Well, that was a lot. That was a lot of fun. I know there are some questions out there. I see some over here. I just was with TikTok, and now over here on YouTube, I see that I'm neglecting both sides, at least at the end here, and that always makes me sad at the end of these chats. But please, especially, these are the two things that I would be very grateful for. Over here on TikTok, if you can add your question, even if you already asked it and I already responded, if you could add it to my Q&A part of my channel, that would be great, because I would love to make dedicated videos to it. Over here on YouTube, if you could, well, please subscribe, everybody, please, so I can keep in touch. But if you could maybe copy and paste the question you asked here and put it in the comment of another video or something. The reason being is sometimes the chat of a live disappears after the live is over. They doesn't migrate very well to the comments field, and I don't want to lose A, the things that we talked about, and B, things I didn't get to. So it's so nice to meet you all, so nice to see some familiar faces too, and yeah, looking forward hopefully to seeing you again on another live. See ya, and see ya.